Hello all, welcome to RocketNews.com. In this session, we'll discuss about hypertext markup language, the language for the web. Let us get into the agenda. After completing this lesson, we should be able to understand what is HTML, what are the browsers we use it, and a sample hello world page, as well as what are the tools required for a developer to learn HTML. So before proceeding further about HTML coding, let us understand the background of the HTML. So it was invented by Tim Berners-Lee in 1989, and where he invented the W3C as well as the HTML1, and also he's the one who invented the first browser. So in 1989, so Tim Berners-Lee implemented the World Wide Web we call W3C, World Wide Consortium, and then he invented the HTML. And from there on, like we had, HTML has exploited with a different set of version. Right now, it is with a 5.2 or like a 5 plus version. So there has been good amount of features which is getting added up, and anything which you see in the browser, it is always based on HTML. Of course, there are other frameworks involved, but the content what you see in the browser is an HTML. Okay, so let us get into the HTML. So what does HTML stands for? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's a four-word abbreviation: Hypertext Markup and Language. So why do we use it? It is a standard markup language for creating web pages. Web page is nothing but whatever you see in the website. So website generally, like if at all, if you want to open any website, we use a software component called browser, right? So before proceeding further, I can just show you a simple example. Let us say I open this Chrome browser. So now I want to open a website. So I just give the address of a website like a google.com. Now what is happening is the request which I entered the browser is sent by the browser to the internet, and from there we'll get a response, right? So the server which is sitting on the internet receives my request and sends me the response, and it is provided as a output in the browser. Now whatever I'm seeing now in the browser, it is a HTML language. Okay, here if you observe, how do I know it's an HTML language? So you can just simply click on Control U, or you can just right click here and click on View Source. View Page Source. The shortcut is Control U. And here if you observe, it is simply, if you see the first tag, right? Doc type HTML, right? So by this I can say it's an HTML language. Okay, of course, it seems like it involves a good amount of CSS, JavaScript, other frameworks also involved in this one. Okay, but basically this is a HTML language. Okay, now let's get back to our slide. So what does HTML? It's a language used for the purpose of creating web pages, and it describes the structure of the web pages. It contains a good amount of elements. Here, if you observe, right, so when you open the source code of this particular simple, I mean, the Google website, it's not that much simple. It is one of the very complex website. It seems very simple to the end user, but internally it has implemented a good amount of functionalities. So here, if you observe, we have a functions like the JavaScript functions, or here if you see like some set of elements also somewhere, or maybe I can show you my web page, then you can easily observe that. Okay, because it's very simple one to understand. Okay, now here if you observe, this is a very simple hello world web page which I designed. Okay, and here if you observe, this is the output content which user is seeing, but as a developer you have to write a logic like this, right? It is having the elements, right? HTML, head, title, body, h1, p, b, and something like that, right? So these all things what we mentioned in the square, in the angular brackets, they are called elements. Okay, so this element tells the browser how to display a particular content. So now what is happening here? If you observe the title, where is this title is observed? This title is here, hello world page title. But here if you observe, I have a heading with a size 1. As an end user, you are able to see the content in the bold with the highest font, but how does it appeared? Like why did it appear and how does it appear? It all depends upon the logic which we have written in our HTML content. So here I've mentioned a content enclosed in H1, nothing but heading 1. So it's kind of highest size, or I can say H1 is generally the heading with the highest size. H2 is a little bit small like that. And P is nothing but a paragraph. So whatever the thing which I mentioned, this will be a new paragraph. And here B, what are the content which I mentioned in the this content? It's a part of a bold. So now what I'm trying to tell you is like what are the content which you mention? You are mentioning the particular elements, and based on these elements, the browser validates the content and provides the information appropriate output. Nothing but browser parses it and provides the output as end result in the browser. Okay, so browser is taking the input as well as browser is also providing the output within the same window. Okay, now So HTML element, like HTML elements tell the browser how to display the content. HTML elements label pieces of content such as like this is heading, this is a paragraph, this is a link, etc. Right? So we are labeling all the content. Now coming to the abbreviation again, hypertext, markup, as well as language. Why it is called hypertext? Because so in this one, like generally, like whenever you have a browser, you always see a number of linkages, right? Now here, if you observe again, I'll go back to my Google website. Let us say, so here, if you observe, I click on any of these links, what it'll do, it'll navigate to some other website. It'll navigate to some other website. Let us say, I'll just say hello. So now it went to some other thing. And if I click on this particular functionality, let us say if I open any of the website, right, it'll go to another website. It'll go to another website. Let us say hello HTML. Now what is happening? It'll go to another website. It's like this particular content is providing an hyperlink to another website like this. Okay, that is why it is called hypertext. And why it is called markup? Because what we are doing is whatever the content which you write, it is not exactly displayed to the user, but it will be converted, it will be parsed and provided the output. So here, if you observe, the source code was written like this. The source code was written like, like I just mentioned B and I mentioned the content. But what is happening to the end user? You are able to see the content in an appropriate, a converted manner. So the tags, whatever we provided, the markups, whatever we provided, it tells the browser to display the content in appropriate tag which we mentioned. Okay, that is why it is called markup. And then the language, because this language is like in any software programming, when you say language, what does a language contain? A language contains a syntax, set of keywords, right, and appropriate, like rules we have to follow. Okay, now, so what is a browser? So here, to write like this, what is a browser is a software component, like using which we can access a website, and it is a software component which parses your HTML content and displays the output. Okay, so it is, I can say, it's like if you're aware of another programming language like C language or Java, you'll be having a Java compiler or a C language compiler. In our sense, web browser is a compiler which parses your HTML content and provides the output within the browser itself. Okay, and we have different set of browsers in the market. The topmost web browsers are like MS, Microsoft Internet Explorer or Edge, Google Chrome, Apple Safari, as well as Mozilla Firefox. You can use any browser, and almost all the functionality will be available in all the browsers. Okay, and if you want to start with a hello world page, what is the first tag you have to write it, right? So let us start that, so then we can come back to our basics of HTML. So what I'll do is, I'll just yeah, so I'll just say, okay, now I just saved my file here, right? I'll start with the tag HTML. Okay, and after HTML, I'll just close my tag, right? And I'll just mention inside this one, I'll say body, and I'll also close like this. Okay, now here what I'll do is, this is my H2 text. This is my H2 text I'll mention. Okay, I'll mention one more thing, BR, nothing but a new line. And I'll mention, hey, href is equal to, okay, Google website link. Just see how this looks like. Okay, so what I'll do is, as of now, I just wrote the source code. Okay, and just open this particular sample HTML file in the browser. Okay, now can you see, this is my H2 text. What I have written? I have written like this in the H2, in the heading. In the heading 2, I mentioned this one. And what is the browser is doing? The browser is parsing this content and displaying the appropriate content. And for the A href, anchor href, nothing but like it's nothing but a hyperlink, I can say, hyperlink reference. So now what it provided? So whatever I provided within this particular, what are the content which I provided here, right? Google website link. So for this one, the text is appearing like this, but when you mouse over on this one, it will navigate to the Google website. So here it seems a little bit wrong, right? So just correct that. So it should be like this. You have to always mention like this. Now just refresh. When you refresh, it will get compiled again. Can you see? Now it is google.com, right? Now it navigated to google.com website. And here, if you want to display the heading, so if you want to display the heading, you just need to mention this header part. Okay, If at all, if you want to write the heading part, you just need to mention this one. Okay, title, I'll just say HTML title. Just save it and go to the page and refresh. Control R or F5, anything will work, right? HTML title. So this is how it work. Okay, now let us see this commands again. So this doc type is not mandatory, but from the HTML5 onwards, the latest version HTML5 onwards, we have to use this doc type. And the first tag, generally we have to start with the HTML tag. Okay, this is a parent tag of your HTML file, like a main function in your Java or C language. Similarly, HTML should be the first tag in your HTML file. Followed by this HTML generally will have heading part as well as body part. So body part is nothing but whatever the content which you write will get displayed in the output. So this heading part is more of an header information to the your file. So heading part element contains a meta information like who is the author, what is the title you want to have it. All this will be available in the heading part. Body is the actual content which will be available to the end user. Okay, it will have images, hyperlinks, paragraphs, tables, and like a bullet, like bullet text. Many other things will be there in the body part. And other one, the H1 element defines a larger heading. That's what we discussed. P element describes a different paragraph. So we have larger number of elements are there. So like as of now, we have just seen a few set of elements, but later on we'll try to understand about the different set of elements which will be there in the HTML. Okay. So this sample just now we saw in the output, right? Like hello world with a heading size 1. So like you can also try with this similar sample. Okay. So what you do is just open the Notepad++ or any other editor, whichever you have it. I mean, just write a content similar to this one and just save the file and open in the browser. If at all, if your particular text is not opening, like if it now in my case, what is happening is when I just double click, it is getting open in the browser, right? In your case, if it doesn't open, what you can do is like you just copy this URL. Okay, now let us say you just mention here, paste it, and you can also open the like the file from here, right? Automatically it will get open. Or other ways, simply right click on your HTML file and just change the open with settings so that it will always open with the appropriate browser. So I prefer Chrome, but you can use the any of the available browser within your operating system. Okay, now yeah, coming back to the last slide. So what are the tools required? You require a browser. Generally that will be installed by default. If it is a Windows operating system, you may have like Internet Explorer or Edge, but you can also install Chrome or a Firefox. Other one, the other tool which you require is a Notepad++. And if you want to have an advanced functionality, then you can start with using any of these IDEs. These are all free, like a Visual Studio is one of the good one, or you can try with another set of IDEs which are available for free also. Okay, but initially you can just start with Notepad++. Later on you can explore the other tools which will help you out to explore more. Okay, thank you.